84. Well, everybody, and welcome to another one of my live sessions, but this time is a special one, and it's in aid of the Patchings Art Festival, and also partially organised by paintersonline.co.uk. So today we're going to be painting the Kestrel. We're actually going to be painting the eye and the beak, and then from that point onwards, tomorrow, another live session as well, we'll start working all these lovely feathers. Okay, so I think we better make a start, don't you? Let's get straight into the painting so you can get really stuck into this. Now, the first thing we want to look at with here is the colours I'm going to be using. Now, I tend to kind of mix around the colours a little bit, so these aren't set in stone, but this is what I'll be using initially. And always do plenty of kind of testing out before you make a start on a painting as well, because at least that way around there's less chance you're going to make too many mistakes on the actual painting. Okay, so do all the testing first, and some scrap pieces of watercolour paper, as you can see there, look. And this is basically scrap which I've got from old paintings which I wasn't happy with, and so I tend to use the backs of them. So a little tip there for you. Yeah, just like that one there, look, there you go. Okay, so we're going to go for raw umber, burnt sienna, burnt umber, phthalo blue, Gambo hue, okay, alizarin crimson. I've crossed one out there, ignore that. Okay, there you go. Alizarin crimson, lamp black, and opaque white. And as I mentioned, we may add colours into that as we go along, but for now, that's what we'll be using. So to begin with, you need to get the outline drawing onto the paper, and remember there's a link down below the video as well which you can click on to download both the reference photograph, the outline drawing, and the colour chart as well for the colours which I'll be using for this project. So don't forget to do that. So I hope you're sitting still and got a nice cup of coffee in your hand and just relaxing, and let's get painting. Now, what I tend to do with all of my paintings first, for the video tutorials I've obviously recorded for my website, I tend to just use trace down paper initially. So I'll print off the reference photograph, or in this case the drawing I've done ready for you, the outline drawing. Okay, and add a little bit of I use what's called a washi tape, which is basically this stuff here, very kind of low tack masking tape. Lightly tack it down, and then put your drawing paper, which is a graphite back paper, shiny side down, okay, underneath, and away we go, just like that. So shiny side down, and all you need to do then, use a medium pressure, so not too hard, ow, okay, so not too hard, not that hard, and then start to go around the image by using that method. And once you've done that, then obviously you'll end up with a drawn out image like so. Now you can do it freehand if you want to, that's not a problem at all if you prefer to do it that way. I do it this way just to kind of expedite it a little bit for the videos more than anything. But if you want to use a grid system, you can do it that way as well. It's entirely your choice. Now, here we go. First thing I want to do, because I've used this graphite back paper, it's good stuff, but it does kind of push it through a little bit too dark. So I'd like to lighten down the lines first. So here I'm just using a putty eraser. So by doing so, just lighten those lines. And you can see the way it's coming off onto my eraser there. Look, see how I've got all the pencil there? But I've been using this one for probably a good year or so now, and you can just keep reusing that eraser over and over again. It's a bit like blue tack, really, isn't it? It really is. So very lightly tap over the pencil just to lighten it down. And the other reason why I do this is that when you look at that reference photo up there, you see with the reference photograph there are some light areas around the edge. So around this side of the head, a little bit paler in places, and because of that I don't want these pencil marks showing through too much, because I don't know, it acts like a bit of an outline really, and I don't want my painting looking too much like a cartoon. So just lighten those lines down, keep massaging that in. Quite therapeutic, it really is. Alright, so far I'm just taking off any residual pencil or graphite. I've always called it pencil, same thing, isn't it? All the way around, and you can see how much I've pulled off there, and you just about want to be able to see that. So I'm going to leave this slightly darker for your purpose so you can see where I'm going. Okay, that will do. Now, colours, here we go. I like to start off with the eye first with all my paintings, all my wildlife videos I do, and that's because when you look around the eye, you've got something to look at, you've got that life within the eye ready to go. So Okay, let's get some colour ready to go on there. Now I tend to use half pans, which are a mixture of Winsor & Newton, Cotsman, and also the student quality, the professional quality ones. So the half pan paints are really, really useful to use because when you're working with wildlife, you're not using too much paint in one go. So I like to lightly spray these normally a few minutes beforehand. I've not done it this time because I want to show you live on the video. And do the same within your mixing palette. Now I've got a little dinky one there, look. I know that's tiny, that one, isn't it? And I've also got my usual one, which is this one here. Okay, so lightly spray that as well, and then we're ready to go. But normally try and do that probably about 10 minutes before we make a start. So if I bring that one in, so you can just see where I'm going, I'm going to get some lemon yellow first of all, and pop that in. And also, I mentioned I've got Gambo Hue. I've not written lemon yellow down actually on that one. I like a mixture of the two if I can sometimes. And Gambo Hue. And you know where that's going to go, don't you? So straight away, that's better. Straight away that will go within just around the outside of the eye and the top of the beak. But within that, I do want to add in, probably better there, I do want to add in a little bit of burnt umber. But I'm going to put this into the bottom corner. Now because my board is on a slight painting angle here, I do like to make sure that I can kind of work it so I've got two separate colours there but within one mixing well. See what I mean? So you can do it that way around. Okay, so that's the first of the colours mixed up, and we'll just go for that first of all. Now protect the paper with a little bit of printing paper underneath your hand, or trace down paper, or tracing paper is quite good as well. And the first thing I want to do is wet around the outside of the eye. Watch out for any runs on your metal ferrule there. So straight into the painting now. Let's get stuck in. We've only got probably an hour to an hour and a half today. I don't think I can talk any longer than that. Okay, so very lightly wet, and I want this to soak into the paper that little bit. I know it's only the light edge at the moment, and the brush I'm using, by the way, is a size 00, so it's size 2 zeros, so quite a fine one. It's my usual size I use for the majority of my paintings. Size 5 is usually my largest brush most of the time, unless I'm doing a large background. So I tend to work on a size 2 zeros or 00, size 1 and a size 5. And this particular one again is Winsor & Newton Cotsman range, which I like to use. This is series 111, and as you can see there, Cotsman series 111, size 00. There you go, that was easy, wasn't it? So into the mixture of lemon yellow and Gambo Hue, and I'm going to start adding this in just around the yellow area around the outside of the eye. Okay, so far so good. And then bring it around. We'll actually add to this as well, you know, what we're going to do. This is just that foundation colour, which I always call it that. So I'm adding down the foundation colour first of all, just kind of, in a way, seal the paper in a way. And by doing so, it kind of gives me something to build on. Think about it in the sense of, if you're building a house, okay, just stay with me on this one, okay? If you're building a house, then you find that you need the foundations down first, and then you can start building that structure, the walls, etc., on top of that foundation. And that's basically what I'm doing. Apart from building walls, I'm building detail on top of that basic layer. Now while that's drying off, which won't take long, I'm going to wet the area just around the nostril, the top of the beak there for the yellow. Might as well make use of this yellow while we got it in there ready to go. See, that's the beauty about watercolours, is that, I'm sure you all know, is that when it dries you can just re-wet it, reactivate it, start it again, keep it going, even a month or 2 months or a year down the line, and come back down to a dry palette and just add a little bit of water and then reuse it. And that's also the beauty about watercolours, that it doesn't smell, does it? Well, not normally. If it does, I'd start to worry. But it doesn't normally smell, and because that's a very clean medium to use and takes up very little space, which is even better. So dampening the paper down. It's not too wet, and it's drying in here quite quickly. I've got some very large lights here today, well, which I do use every day. But you probably see, I don't know if you can see that on there, yes you can, That's how wet that is at the moment, so it's not too wet. And now I can drop this mixture of colour in. I can see on the reference photograph as well that it actually goes above the nostril, probably about there roughly, and then comes back down, disappears into the feathers just above. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into those feathers, tomorrow. That's going to be really good fun. Really will be. I'll do a few offline, just to kind of get a little bit of area done ready, otherwise I'll be there for 5 hours. But I'll show you the entire process in the sense of how to build up all the layers of obviously the feathers as we go along. Now remember we had this little bit of burnt umber down there. I'm going to grab some of that and pop that in just to this lower part of the nostril. Just down there. Just initially. Again, it's just that basic foundation layer. And as we know with watercolours as well, is that you've got to start off light and then gradually get darker as you go along. One, because it's easier to kind of add the layers on that way. Plus also, if you're making a little layer as what's it, the great Bob Ross used to say, the happy accidents, then you can correct and there's more chance you can kind of fix a little bit of a mistake when there's very light layers of paint on the paper. So I'm adding that bit of burnt umber just down below the nostril and around the top. Okay, I think that will just about do. Just for now for that first layer down there, and I'll just add a little bit more on the bottom part of the beak, so the lower mandible, upper mandible, lower mandible. There you go, if you know your birds. Just wet this first of all. Okay, allow it to soak into that paper, or just encourage it to go in there a little bit. Ooh, I don't want it running down the paper like a waterfall. Just want it so it's just lightly soaking in. Get a little bit more of our yellow mix, and then drop that in just on the inside, just this little area here. A little bit of that burnt umber in there as well, and then that can just tickle it in. There you go, little tickle, and that should just about do. Right, ready. Let's work on the eye. Looking forward to that. Right, here we go. Now for the colour for the eye, I'm going to go for a mixture of just 2 colours, just to begin with anyway. Okay, we'll see how we get on. And that's going to be a mix of phthalo blue and lamp black. So now wetted these down, you probably find that these activate really quickly. Now, if you've got any questions you want to ask, please post them in the comments down below. Okay, please do that for me, and then if I can't answer them online live, obviously you know very well I'll be looking at the comments later on anyway after the live event, and I'll reply to your comments for you. So if you've got any questions, anything you want to ask about the way I tend to paint, anything obviously painting related of course, then I'll do my best to answer for you. So that's phthalo blue and lamp black, and I'm going to mix this. I want this probably to let's get my pipette a minute. I want this probably to milky come watery consistency to begin with. I don't want it too thick. Again, the same principle applies. Don't go too thick too quick, if that's the right way of saying it. Don't go too thick too quick. Okay, back to my 00 brush. I like to keep working with this. You can use a size 1 for wetting areas like this. See that there? Look? There you go. Catch it before it runs off. Nothing worse than a big blob of water when you're working on the detail work. Now, if you paint over the top of the highlight in the eye, don't worry, it's not a problem. We don't have problems in watercolour. We can easily fix that. And because I use watercolour white, yes I do, don't tell anybody, it's a secret. Because I use watercolour white, you find that using watercolour white you can really kind of emphasize the highlights within the wildlife, and I do that with just about every single painting I paint, most of them anyway. The botanical ones not quite as much, sometimes I do, but the wildlife paintings, which are my main subjects, I tend to use watercolour white a lot because it can really bring out the colour. So that's already soaking into the eye, and again you'll be able to see that on the camera just out there. There you go. So that's how wet that is, and it's just lightly soaking in now. So back to that mixture of phthalo blue and lamp black to a milky consistency. Now work on 4 consistencies. The first one is watery, so the same kind of consistency you get out for your tap, your kitchen tap, or faucet. The next one will be milky, and milky is a little bit thicker than water. Trust me on that, okay? It's a little bit thicker than water. Then you've got creamy, like a single cream, so really creamy, which I do like to use for the more kind of darker details. And then finally, you've got one left, which is called, well, thick. There you go. So when you've got a thick mixture of paint, when you can barely paint a straight line without it breaking. Now while I'm adding this in, I'm thinking about the shape whilst I'm yapping away to you here, because I just want this again as a foundation level. That's all I'm looking for initially. And I can see I've got the shape a little bit wrong there, so I need to bring this side down that little bit more, just over the top of the yellow, just a touch, tiny amount. There you go, something like that. And then I'll add a little bit more over the top. Okay, just to darken it down slightly, add a little bit more colour in there now. Now we know where we've got to go. We've mapped it out ready. We can start to pick out where these lines are going to go around the eye and the overall shape. Now my eyes are flicking backward and forward, backward and forward, backward and forward, backward and forward to the reference photograph every few seconds. So bear that in mind. And that way, because I've got a very short-term memory, so I've been told, then you find that it tends to sink into your mind that little bit quicker as well. So you tend to remember things. So I'm going to add a little bit of blank black just into that little area there. Okay, just mix. I never use black on its own though, because it can look a little bit on the flat side. It really can. And while this is nice and damp, I'm just going to add a little bit of that in. This will dry lighter, remember. And bringing it around, just around the bottom of there. And try and see where that goes around there actually. Just tuck it into the corner. And you don't want to overload that brush. So I'll tell you what I tend to do. If I want to make sure that I haven't got too much paint on the brush, I'll show you this in a minute actually. Just try and get this on. Gradually build this up, because that blue colour underneath will help it stand out. Takes away that starkness from the black as well, to get a bit more of that. What I tend to do when I load a brush, I tend to load it, roll it and pull away. And I'll show you what I mean by that very shortly, to give you a little tip on how to load a brush, how I load a brush to ensure, go on, you can do it, getting smaller and smaller all the time, to ensure that there isn't too much paint on the brush. Because if there is, and you try to paint a straight line or even a wiggly line, you want to get nice and fine, ends up like a big blob of paint on the paper. I know, I've done it, I know what it's like, and I know a lot of my members on my website do the same thing. And so I can't get the lines fine enough, Paul. How do I do that? So what I'll do, I'll show you all that shortly on how that works. Okay, and just tickle that down there. Just blend it with a damp clean brush as we go along. A little bit more down there. Now one thing I want you to do, if you don't mind, is to just trying to see what I can do on there for you. Just 1 second there. Trying to see where that tickles into there actually. If you click on subscribe, okay, down below, then when I go live again, which is tomorrow, don't forget, and also any other videos I put here on YouTube, you will get notified, so you shouldn't miss any. So remember that. So if you do enjoy this today, then click on subscribe, then that bell icon. Okay, that's very important. And then at least that way, you shouldn't miss one of my videos. So thank you for that. Okay, right. Just working down now, just a little bit more. So what I want to do when this is dry, I'm going to neaten out this inside edge of this eye. See, already we're starting to get some shape in there, as you can see, but it's not there yet, obviously. But we're getting the shape, it's starting to come together. We need to still neaten out the very edge of that. Now, whilst that's drying off, let's think about where else it can work. We can give it a blast with a hairdryer. I do own one, and we can do that very shortly. But I think what I might do, just put a light wash of colour. I'm going to switch to my size 1 brush now. Okay, now this one is by Rosemary & Co. I do like to buy their brushes as well. I'm not advertising for them, I don't get paid by them, sadly. But I do use airbrushes quite a lot, especially this particular one, which is a, there you go. Oh, you can't really see that one, can you? It's all worn away. I've had it that long. It's a Series 93. There you go. It's a spotter brush. Very good brushes these are as well. So it's a short bristled brush. Not easy to say, it really isn't. You try it when you're talking live on the air. So a short bristled brush, and it gives you a bit more control as well, which is why I tend to use that 00 brush, which is a synthetic bristle brush, because it's very short and synthetic, so it's got a good snap rate as well. And what do we mean by a snap rate? Basically, all that basically means is that when you get your brush like this one here, look, you put your finger on that brush like that, let go, snaps back very quickly. That gives me more control. If it goes back, well, slower, then you probably find there's not got a very good snap rate on it. So therefore I find personally that I can't get the detail, not the real fine details when I get into those side of things, quite as easy. Now wetting this down, allowing it to soak into the paper yet again. I'm going to get the same colour, so that bluey black, very technical I know. I'm going to pop it in straight away. There we go. Again, all I'm after is a basic layer, just a basic foundation wash of colour. I'm not too worried about trying to keep it very neat at this time, just to get some colour on the paper. And I'm going to add it down to the first probably lower 3/4 of this, and probably into the lower mandible as well, just there. Okay, wash your brush out, give it a quick dry on some kitchen roll, and give it a light tap with a damp clean brush just to allow it to soak and blend that little bit. And that will do just for that first kind of wash on there. We'll start building the detail over the top of this as well, and probably add another watercolor over the top of that, and that will do there. Okay, so wash that out. Back to the size 00. I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll just neaten that edge down there a little bit. Not happy with that. Bring it out, just that fraction there, just try and get that little curve coming around. That's better. Now, what I mentioned about loading the brush earlier on, which I was going to go on about, is that what I tend to do, I load it, I roll it as I pull away. Okay, so load it, roll it, pull away at the same time as you're rolling, and then very often I'll get some kitchen roll and give it a tap, and that will take any residual paint off that brush. So when you go to paint a very fine line, something like this here, look, you can paint a very fine line and wiggle it with a shaky hand in one go without adding too much paint to the paper. See what I mean? So load it, roll it, and dab it. So remember that, and that's what I tend to work on a regular basis. Now let's carry on with the eye. This is just about dry already, believe it or not. I'm just going to neaten out the edge now, just this internal edge. Try and get a nice sharp line around the inside edge. Try and see where that goes around there. That's because that just hooks up slightly higher on the reference photo. And bring it down. There you go. Just like that. And all the way around. And just down the side. Now if you do fancy having a go at another live painting, which I've done as well, it's out of interest, I have done one of a wren. I know, beautiful birds, they really are wrens. Beautiful, beautiful birds. I did it live on YouTube, so if you do fancy having a go at something like that, then I'll put a little link in that top corner for you after I've gone live. I can't do it while I'm live, but I'll do that once it's gone live, and then you can have a click on that and you see it all pop up and you can have a nose at that. If not, have a look at my YouTube channel anyway, and I'm sure you'll find it on here. Right, and that's a little playlist on how to paint a wren. I know, beautiful little birds. So just adding this in now, thinking about some of the reflections, because I'm providing you a very, very large photograph. Looking on the side then, it's one of my own photos, this one as well. You can just see the reflection of like a window really in there, isn't it? Just inside that eye. And we can neaten this down as we go along and just tickle it down the side there. Yeah, that's looking better. Okay, the beak isn't dry yet, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some burnt umber pop it into here. Bit more, Paul. Don't be stingy with it, a bit more. There you go. And I think I'll add a bit of this kind of blacky blue in there just to dullen it down. Okay, so remember, load it, roll it, tap it, and then I'm going to just add this in now around the outside edge of the yellow area. We still need to go brighter on the yellow yet, but this is where we start to define some of these edges a little bit more now. And you can see how fine you can get. This is, by the way, a brand new brush today. I know, I'm really splashing out on a brand new brush. I know, don't tell anybody. And then right around the top of the eye, this is where we're going to map it out again, just that a little bit more now. Now I can see my pencil marks underneath. We do need to seal those pencil marks in, and all I mean by that, by sealing them in, is using something like this colour and painting over all these pencil marks, the internal ones, not the outside ones. And by doing so, you will ensure, well, most of the time anyway, that your pencil lines, your little reference marks that you put in there will stay put. So adding these tiny lines in now, look at the direction some of these go, just so I can see where things go. I'll be adding to all this anyway as we go along. Okay, that's looking better. Hey. Looking a bit more live now, isn't it, on there? So let's have a quick look, make sure everybody's okay. Right, so everything's still working fine, which is even better for me. Tickle down the side there, a few little more details around there. Right, back to the yellow. Here we go. And then you can just see it on the side there. Now that's dried already, it really has. That's how warm it is today. Well, in here anyway, underneath my lights. So I'm going to now add a bit more yellow over the top of the yellow, just to kind of just give it a bit more brightness in there as well. A little bit of burnt umber in there at the same time. So it's not too bright a yellow, if you know what I mean. Just want a little bit of brown in there. And then down the side, allowing it to soak into those little edges. There we go. I think we nearly have ourselves an eye. Not far off, I know. And you can keep adding over the top of these layers as much as you want to as well. So you can really fine tune this. Right, now back to the beak. So while that eye is drying, so keep thinking about that all the time. So what can I work on next? Where can I go? You know, and so on. Now the paper, by the way, if anybody asks, I'm using is a little bit of Bockingford. I use Bockingford cold press paper. It's a £140. I've used Bockingford for many years now, and it's my favourite paper kind of to go to. It's a mid-range paper really. It's not too expensive either, and I think it's a very good paper for what you pay for it as well. It really is. So I'm just lifting this off with a clean damp brush. I'm not happy with that, even though I'm going to be putting some feathers behind there anyway. Okay, so back to the beak. I'm going to start adding a little bit more colour now, just around the nostril, which goes somewhere like that. We'll fill the nostril in most of it, apart from that little tiny area there. Bit of burnt umber in there. Apart from that one little area, just in there. Back to the yellow. As you can see, this is that browny yellow colour now. And we can start to think about where all of this goes. This is where you start thinking about the shape as well and the form. It's so important trying to think about the shape and consider those shapes, and as I mentioned earlier, to keep looking at that reference photograph every few seconds rather than trying to make it up, which is fine if you want to do it that way around. Okay, adding more colour in there and soften that edge down just so it blends a little bit. Okay, that'll do for that next layer. I'm going to carry on with this area down there on the lower part of the beak. Tap it in, wash your brush out, clean and damp, and give it a tickle right on the edge there. Small tiny circles, just to add that colour in, just that lower mandible. There we go. Now then, here we go, the beak. Scary. No, it's not, honestly. We can do this together. Now, I'll take a big deep gulp and we'll go for it. So looking at the overall shape there, it's a bit hidden in the dark, but I've got an idea of the shape anyway. And it kind of comes down, hooks up a little bit there, then back in again. So it's a bit like a elongated S shape. So I've painted quite a few Kestrels over the years, and this is I was quite pleased with this photograph actually, which I took. It wasn't in the wild though, it was a birds of prey centre near Stroud, so quite a nice place to visit. Right, and then adding this over the top, looking at where some of these lines lighten as well. So this is where we're going to get that depth of colour. It really will be. Think about the shape of that beak. Now as you come round the shape, it kind of wiggles down like that. So I'm going to lightly draw this line in. Not too much paint on the brush though before you do this. And you find that you got the line there, look. And then above it, you got another line. Barely touching. See? Hardly any pressure at all. Take your time, there's no rush. Never rush a painting. And then add in some of the dark areas that you can see, or the mid-tone areas. I've got a little area down there, you can just see it on the reference photograph there, look. Oh, no, they went into song then. There we go. A little bit more around there. Okay, and I'm going to lightly blend this now with a clean, damp brush. Now when you do it this way around, make sure you just keep washing that brush out, because all you're simply doing otherwise is picking up that paint all the time. Lightly blend it. Small circles, that's all I'm doing. You can see I'm using the side of the brush just to blend it down that little bit. And you can see already we're starting to get a little bit of shape. We've got to go darker obviously, but we're starting to get that shape in there now. Because we've got to add those lovely lines that you can see, them faded lines within the photo. I'm looking forward to that part. Now underneath the beak, we got the line coming along there. Take your time. A little bit more down there as well. And then, oops, watch out for the runs there. Look, there you go. Oh, how dare you! How dare you! And give it a tickle again, little circles, with a clean, damp brush around the edge. Yeah, that's better. It's coming together now, isn't it? Starting to. Right, a little bit of brown, a little bit of yellow, back to the nostril hole again, and we'll just work around the inside of that. So burnt umber, gambo hue, and also lemon yellow as a mix of 3 colours. And thinking about the little area inside, I don't know what that's called. If anybody knows what this little area inside the nostril is called, please post a comment down below. I'd love to hear, because I don't know that. Anybody knowledgeable for those tiny, tiny parts of a bird? That'd be quite interesting. Okay. And what do you find difficult with watercolours as well? Do you find painting feathers, painting fur? Don't just say painting in general, but painting feathers, painting fur, anything like that. Let me know, because I'll be quite interested as well on that. Because I might be able to kind of concentrate when I go live again on certain things like that and elements like that for you. So that's if you're subscribed, obviously, down below. Alright, so you don't miss it. So very lightly tickling the top of the beak now, below the yellow. Look how it kind of curves over. As I just curves it in that shape like that. Then underneath the nostril hole, there you go. Just there. That one there, right? Okay. Right, now to get darker. Straight into that blacky blue. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a little bit more lamp black and pop it in there. Equal bit more. Pop it in there. I want this now to a creamy consistency. This is where we can start to think about getting a little bit deeper in colour for the beak. Okay. Here we go. So remember the outline of this, like an elongated S shape as I said earlier on. Then it doesn't come to a point at the bottom, it comes to a round end, doesn't it? Just round right at the very bottom there. And then pull it up. But you find as well in the reference photograph that there aren't any dark lines on this part, are there? So you don't want to put an outline there. Only have the dark to probably just under halfway up. and then you can start to add in more lines for the rest of this area of the beak. As it gradually gets lighter, especially in the middle, we'll be adding a little bit of watercolour white in there as well. I'll show you all that shortly. And thinking about that curve all the time. Now I tend to do what's called ghosting. I do it without thinking sometimes, you know. And all it is, it doesn't mean to say we've got ghouls and ghosts in the house. Oh no, oh no. No, basically all it simply is, I'll go over the same area time and time again. I do this when I'm painting whiskers on cats, dogs, leopards, whatever it might be. Especially the recent leopard video I did. That I'll ghost over the area first to get the feel of the shape, and then I'll bring the bristles down to kind of allow that then to graze the paper. So it's a little bit about ghosting and how I do that. So just on the side there now, adding this in, you can see the shape now forming. It's all about gradually building up the layers and just taking your time. There's no rush, to keep saying. Shake that off and then blend it just like we did before, very lightly. Okay, I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I start working on the lower mandible, because otherwise this will start blending into the other one, wouldn't it? We don't want that to happen. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a quick drink of coffee just briefly for 2 minutes. I'll be back after my little break for you. So I'm just going to show you a little video of what I do for a living, okay, here on the internet most days of the week. Well, just about every day of the week, really. So I'll be back in about 2 minutes' time. Well, I hope you're enjoying watching the videos so far. Why don't you try and learn the way that I paint? So I'm going to show you how to use my techniques and the way I produce these very detailed wildlife paintings. And I do this on my online school on my website. So I'm going to take you across there now and show you how all that works, okay? And give you some general idea what it's all about. Now, when you arrive at my website, click on the membership icon, then down to the tutorial dashboard. I'll show you what the main tutorial dashboard looks like to give you some general idea on how easy this is to kind of navigate. So every month you get access to a full PDF step-by-step tutorial as well, which obviously can paint using this offline, so you don't have to be online watching the videos. So you can have a look at the most recently added tutorials. As you can see, there's a line of those there. But then just below we've got the main tutorial index, okay? So we've got the birds, animals, insects, botanical. So going on to the birds, you find we've got different levels as well. So we've got beginner, intermediate, and also advanced. Let's say the wolf. So here you can see the level of ability, which I'd recommend for this particular painting, how long the video content is. You'll also be able to download the reference photograph and of course the outline drawing, and even a little mini PDF pack as well, which contains all those items together, including a list of the colours which you're going to use for this particular painting. As you go below the video, you can see all these little links down there which are highlighted. So if you click on one of those links, let's say the mouth. Alright, so just go to the area where the mouth starts to play, and it takes that timeline on the video look straight to that section of the video, so you can play it directly from there. Oh, and don't forget as well, when you are a paid member on my website, then you find you get 25% discount for all the written PDF tutorials which I have within my shop, so another bonus as well. Now the free members section, you get 3 videos here. Alright, so you have the robin, the bee eater, and also a cat's eye paint along, which I did live. So why don't you join as a free member and see if this is a right thing just for you. Now when you join my website on a monthly or annual subscription, you'll get access to over 60 video tutorials, and I tend to add on average 3 new ones every single month as well, so it's continually growing, so you get access to the entire back catalogue. Not forgetting our private Facebook group. Sit, relax and paint along with me using my non-technical jargon way of painting, and with a smile or two along the way. So let's get them brushes wet and let's get started. Well, welcome back. I'm suitably refreshed after that. Thank you very much for watching that. Now, here we go, let's carry on. Yeah, a little bit more around there, just briefly before I go back to the dark colour. Just thought that, because I'm obviously looking at this while I'm having a quick drink of coffee here. I thought, well, that needs it. It's always wise, you know, every now and then, just to step back from the painting. I'll say this a lot, I know, but if you take a break and just go away, just go and put the kettle on, come back with a cup of coffee or something like that, and then step back, and then you can come back with fresh eyes, and you very often see things, you know, that you should have spotted before. Because you're so close to a painting when you're working in detail, you tend to miss a lot of the kind of mistakes, or the larger mistakes, because they're so big that you can't see them, as daft as it sounds. So just bear that in mind when you're working on it, okay? So just have a break every now and then, and just step back and then come back into it. Now just adding this dark colour back in, which is this one here. Oh, and don't forget, by the way, if you wouldn't mind clicking on subscribe, that'd be brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. And that bell icon, so you know where I am. So just blending that in with a clean damp brush. A little more around there actually. Oh yeah, that's it. And you can see the way that's forming now, but I'm leaving this bit of a gap in between. A little bit of a gap there. Now, here we go. The darkest colour on the beak. This is the time. I'm going to start adding this in just for this lower edge to begin with, because this is really dark down there. Thinking about how dark it goes actually, because there's quite a lot of dark areas. I want this to be quite dark because I'm going to lift off a little bit of paint from there as well. And that's just so we can create those extra textures as we go along. Now when your brush starts to run out of paint, as it's starting to now, that's when you can add the finest of marks in, thinking about that gentle curve all the time as you go through it. So a little bit of dark colour, a little bit of lamp black and the blue mixed with some brown. And this is where we can start to think about this nostril hole a little bit more now. Just to semi-outline it. I'm not trying to make it too obvious, this outline. Not too much. It's like a little half circle just in there, isn't it? And we've got tiny little hints of dark just in places around where the yellow comes down above the beak. Somewhere like that. Yeah. And then start working on anywhere else you need to kind of readjust and darken it down. A little bit more around there. Okay. Now before we carry on with any of that, I'm going to show you some of the lifting off technique now. Now lifting off, all it simply is, like I did on the side of the beak, is by having a damp clean brush like this one. Okay. So basically I've washed it and I've dried it just once through some kitchen roll like that. And I'll go into the eye, and this is where, if you want to, you can pull off some extra fine details within that eye. Just give it a tickle again, and then very quickly lift and leave a small pale mark there. So again, clean brush. Always wash the brush out between though, while you're moving that paint from there over to where you want to go to next. You don't want to do that. So again, very lightly tickle it and then lift. And you can see the paint with these two little marks here just lifted off, and that's just from that small area there. So it's a good way of just adding those extra little details within the eye if you want to. And I might do, I might add a little bit more phthalo blue in there as well. This way you can fine tune these little areas. So a bit more phthalo blue, and I want it more to a probably more of a watery consistency. I don't want it too thick. Something like that. And every now and then, not all over it though, add a bit of colour in there. Okay, now then back to the yellow. Here we go. And some of the phthalo blue still in there. That's good, because I want it to be fairly like a browny green colour. So this is going to go to there now. So that's what I want. Something like that will do. So that's phthalo blue, because it was still a little bit on the brush, which I was going to grab anyway. And a little bit of yellow, and mix it to a creamy consistency. A little bit more dark actually in there. Ah, that's it. That's got it. That's got it. Something like creamy consistency. Load it, roll it, and pull away. And then we can start to think about some of the finer marks within this yellow area. Just lightly touch those in. A little bit here and there. And then around the outside ring of the eye. just to neaten it down. And if you want to at this stage, you can pull some of those little fine lines through, which is obviously the feathers coming over the top. Looks like eyebrows, doesn't it? And a few more around there. And this will bring the eye together now. A few little dots. And that's adding that extra texture in there as well, isn't it? What we're after. Just a few. Yeah. And we've got a small area here. See this yellow patch we got on the photograph? You've got a section around that. So I'm just going to map it out a minute using this kind of greeny, blacky, yellowy colour. And just working out where things go. That's it. Around there. Yeah, happy with that. Okay, I think what we need to do is look at the watercolour white next and how that works. Now, watercolour white is one of those things which I use a lot, so don't tell anybody. No, I do, I use it a lot. So back into my mini palette here. Now this is one I get from SAA, but there's a lot of different manufacturers on the market. What I suggest you do, look for one which is opaque in consistency, okay? Opaque in nature, should I say. Because if it's semi-opaque or semi-transparent, you find you can't get that bright white, and a lot of my members on my website do tell me that. Excuse me a minute. Do tell me that. Don't laugh. That's got it. I need to kind of clean that lid on that one. They do tell me that they can't quite get it as bright as they want it to be. So what I very often say is just make sure that it's definitely opaque and not semi-opaque or anything like that. Okay. You can use, if you want to, white gouache as well, because that's naturally opaque, isn't it? So you could use that instead. I know a lot of watercolor colorists do use gouache for their white highlights. But with this one, you want to mix it to a creamy consistency again. Instead of just dragging the water up into that area. Again, my board is on a slight angle like that. Okay, got a bit of paint on my thumb there. And lightly mix it to a creamy consistency. And pull away. And here we go. Right. White. I'm going to start off just on the yellow area of the beak. Just add a little bit of white in there. Again, if it doesn't show, just thicken it down slightly more. That's why I have the water at the bottom, you see, because then I can just drag it up. It doesn't contaminate all the rest of the white and thin it down when I don't want it to do that. Just gives me a bit more control over the mixture which I use. Just around the top there, and then lightly tapping, stippling basically. Just tapping around this area here. You can see that on the photograph how much it's a little bit lighter in those areas. Then working on the top of the beak. Reload. Again, if you have any questions you want to ask, please post them down below in the comments section. I will get to those after the video has gone live. I'll do my best to kind of reply to them for you as well. And don't forget, I'm going live again tomorrow painting the feathers as well, so I will be doing that. And very lightly pull down these lines again in that curved direction. Remember that ghosting effect I was on about? Like so. And then I can also add in just very fine line. Comes over here. Now the good thing about watercolor white as well is that you can tone it down. You can add a colour over the top. So if it's too bright, which this may be, it will fade paler actually. It always fades paler. If the thinner the paint is, the paler the line will fade, or the paint will fade. So bear that in mind as well. So if it fades and it's too, well, you can barely see it, then you know it was too thin to begin with. So I can lightly soften this down. So I wasn't happy with that line. Just with a damp clean brush. See how easy that was? I can do the same now. Just looking at the beak. Lightly soften it. Catching the edge of the white paint and pulling it down again in that same line. And there we go. And that's a little bit about adding watercolor white. Yay! See, that wasn't a problem, was it? That was easy enough to do. And we can, if you want to, if you went over that highlight in the eye, this is where, if you want to, you could add that little bit of a dot in there. If I take some off the brush a minute, I can just make out some small areas just inside the eye there, a little bit of sparkle here and there. And you know what, I think I might just put a little bit inside the highlight. There we go, just one there, give the brush a wash out, and then very lightly just soften the inside edge on one edge of it, just to blend it out, something like that. And we can add a little bit of colour over that as well if need be. Now then, the next thing we need to think about is preparation for the feathers tomorrow. To do that, we need to get a whole wash of colour on there. And for the wash of colour, let me just move things around here a minute. We're going to be looking at, I'm trying to think. These are my testing cards, okay, which I've been working on. So we're going to be looking at something like the lightest colours first, so raw umber and burnt umber. For the head, I worked out a colour of raw umber, burnt sienna and burnt umber. And we've got raw umber, burnt umber, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson. But there's so many colour mixtures we can work on. But I'll go through the process as we go along. So the first thing we need to do is get that foundation wash on. And remember, that's going to be our building blocks. That's going to be our main foundation to start adding the details over the top. And the way we're going to do this is by looking carefully at the reference photograph. And you can see the top of the head is this sort of colour here. So again, that was raw umber, burnt sienna and burnt umber for the top of the head. And then we can continue that colour, not just top of the head, but working our way down the rest of the neck underneath the beak as well. Alright, got that so far? So we'll be adding that colour in. But we need to make sure the paper's nice and wet. And it needs to be wet, I don't know, we need to keep it wet for as long as we can while we drop these mixtures in. Before you wet the paper, got to get the colours mixed up. Always mix the colours ready and waiting, otherwise the paper's drying on you whilst you're in the middle of mixing the colours up. So in comes my bigger palette, and these are all ceramic as you can hear. I'm going to start adding the colours in. So let's go for the first one, which would be raw umber and burnt sienna. And the thing with mixing colours as well, you want to make sure that you mix more than you think you'll need, because if you don't and you run out and it's been a complicated colour to mix, well, it takes a little bit trying to get it back again, isn't it? You know, especially if you're kind of fighting drying times on the paper. Okay, so a little bit more there. Oh, got a bit of a hair in there, a lot. Certainly not one of mine. There you go. Take that one out. So that is, as I mentioned, raw umber. A little bit more. And again, you want this more to a watery consistency. And the other colour we had for that was also burnt sienna. Now that's such a rich colour, burnt sienna, isn't it? Such a nice bright colour. So there's your burnt sienna. And just a small amount of burnt umber. Now the brush I'm using for mixing here is an old acrylic brush, which I used to use acrylic paints years and years and years ago. And I've had it ever since. In fact, this used to have a point on it, believe it or not. But I mean, now you can see, yeah, it's past its sell by date and use by date. But I still use it because it's very handy, and it's a stiff bristle brush again, there you go, for working on the mixing of the paints. Try not to mix colours with your decent detail brushes, because if you do, you can ruin them tips very, very quickly indeed. Okay, so that's one colour mixed up, ready to go. I'm going to go for another mix of raw umber and burnt umber. So as I mentioned, get these ready and waiting first of all. Using tube paints is obviously quicker, as you can imagine, but you know, if you use tube paints, let me just move that around there a little bit, 1 second. If you use tube paints and you find that well, very often you can use more than you think you'll need, and you tend to end up wasting paint, I find anyway, from my own experience, which is why I prefer half pans as well for the detail work. So that's again raw umber. I'm going to go for a little bit of burnt umber. Oh, look at that, that's dark, isn't it? And the third one, if you remember, was raw umber. So raw umber again. Oh, it's getting repetitive, this, isn't it? So I could have all these colours mixed up ready for you, but I want to show you me mixing these in front of you so you can see what I'm doing, okay? So there you go. So that's raw umber again. A little bit of burnt umber. And finally, a little bit of, oh hang on, no, we got burnt sienna. There's one more going in there, yeah. Look how warm that is now. And then a small amount of alizarin crimson. I'm going to pop in there as well. Okay. And that's a lovely warm colour, it really is. Very warm colour. Okay. Now, the brushes I'm using for the whole of the painting, out of interest before I carry on with this, is, you ready? An old acrylic mixing brush, as I mentioned. We've got our size 00, which is a Winsor & Newton Cotman Series 111, as I say 00. Nice short handle, that one as well. I'm also using the Rosemary & Co. It's worn off the handle there. So Rosemary & Co. size 1 and the size 5 I'll show you in a minute, which is that one there. There you go. And the size 5, oh that's better, you can read that one. And it's a Series 93, it's a pure sable brush. You don't have to use sable, I know not everybody uses sable nowadays. They do have the synthetic versions as well, which are just as good I find, because I have tried those out. So that's the size 5, size 1, size 00, and some old bit of tats which I've got there. Okay, right, you ready? Let's go for it. Now, I'm going to lightly wash this down now for the head and the neck, all the way through. Watch out for any runs. Catch that water. If you catch the edge of the eye like I've just done there, don't worry, we can tidy that up again afterwards. I don't worry about anything like that because there's no point. You know, it's your painting at the end of the day and you can do what you want with it. And you can change it, you can alter it, you can have whatever colours you want as well. You'll also find as well, colours vary so much as well, don't they? You know, when you're looking at a reference photograph, like you're looking at the Kestrel one in the top left hand corner there, different screens, different monitors will show it slightly different, which they do, don't they? You know, if you're trying to view this on your mobile phone or if you're trying to view it on a computer, try looking on both devices at the same time, and you find very often the colours do vary slightly because it depends on the device that you're viewing it on and the colour settings obviously on that device. And you find a lot of computers as well are very often set too bright, and because of that, just naturally, you know, because of that, the colours can be slightly off for that. So to be honest with you, the answer really is paint what you see, because in nature the colours do vary anyway, and they also vary as well on the way the photograph was taken, because that depends on the light, doesn't it? You know, is it daylight, is it overcast, those kind of things. So that also varies, and also the camera settings. So there's so many different elements to it, there's so many different things which can affect the colour of a photograph and how it all works and how it appears on your computer screen. So just bear that in mind. So if your colour's not exactly the same as that reference photograph, don't worry, not a problem, because you probably got it right. The photograph may be slightly off. Who knows? Who knows? As long as you're happy with the painting at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Now I'm going to keep wetting this down. We're using my size 5 brush. You can go for a larger brush, but remember you've got to try and control that brush as you go along, because when you're working around somewhere like the beak here, I may catch the edge of it, but I don't want to go straight across it. It's a little bit there, look. Probably down the side there as well. And you'll need to wet this probably 2, maybe 3 times, just to allow the water to soak in. And the more you wet it, allowing it to soak in, the longer it will stay damp, which gives you that bit more working time as well when you're adding them colours on. If you wet it just the once, and like me using bright lights and it's a warm day, it's not that warm here today actually, here in North Devon, which it isn't, and you find that the paper will dry very quickly on you and you end up with cauliflower marks. And all that is, if you've never seen cauliflower marks or blooms, is just a simple thing where you add in kind of wet paint onto a semi-dry area, not quite dry, and it'll kind of spread out like a starburst. Quite nice effects actually. I sometimes use those effects myself as well. Right, so wet it down again. Allow this water to soak into the paper whilst you're doing that, okay? So that's what I'm doing. So this is how I keep my paper wet, just by making sure I'm going over those areas time and time again. You have to remember as well that if you started wetting this down at the top of the head, then you remember that's going to dry first, isn't it? So that would be the first area to dry. So you have to keep wetting that area. Keep thinking, where did it go first? Because that's going to dry first. Okay. Now that is just about soaked into the paper. So if I just show you that on the screen there, see that down there? We haven't got a run of water down there, so it's not kind of welling up down the bottom. You can just see it down there, look, just down the bottom. So I'm going to allow that to soak in just a little bit longer. In fact, we're just about there already, actually. That'll do. Okay, let's go for the lightest of the colours first. And if you remember, that's going to be the raw umber and burnt umber. Might add a little bit more water to that. I don't want it too dark. So this is quite a watery mixture. I'm going to start adding this in first of all to the top of the head using the size 5 brush. Take your time, there's no rush, as I said earlier. Bringing it down, all the way down. Now I do paint a lot of birds, by the way, and I'll also paint tigers and leopards and a variety of things, but I do paint a lot of birds. I do like painting birds. And if you fancy painting a robin as well, I did another live one on here. I know I keep going live on YouTube, I can't help it, it's just a habit now. Is if you fancy painting that, what I'll do after this video's gone live, I'll pop a little card up for you in the top right hand corner there on the live robin painting, so you can have a look at that if you fancy painting a robin. There you go. And you get the reference photograph and the outline drawing, usual thing anyway. So you can just see how I do all that sort of thing. Okay, so working this into the paper now. I'm looking at the carefully at the photograph. I want to see where it's lighter and where it's darker. Now this will dry lighter, and that's because I've got so much water on the paper. The water on the paper will dilute the pigments. It will dilute the paint. So that's why we need to make sure it stays wetter longer. Otherwise, you're kind of fighting drying times all the time. Looking at where you can see more of this colour as well, leaving gaps in between. Notice how it's a bit pale around there. So I'm going to allow that to stay pale down there as well. And then around just past the beak. There you go. And then down here. See, this is drying down here already. I'm just going to dampen this down that little bit more, just to allow it to stay wet. There we go. Now for the next mix, which I'm going to go for the yeah, that was a raw umber, burnt sienna, and the burnt umber, wasn't it? Which I need to do. So raw umber, burnt sienna, burnt umber. That's right. Yeah. Double check that then. I'm adding this in now, just down to the back of the neck. Now again, it's pale around there, but I'm going to bring a little bit in to there. And this is all going to be, as I mentioned earlier on, the foundation for our feathers, which we're working on tomorrow. So I'll do a little bit off camera, otherwise it'll be a very long video session. But I'll make sure that I leave plenty of spaces so I can show you how I build it all up bit by bit, step by step, on how to create very detailed and layered feathers. So I'll be doing that with you, as I mentioned, tomorrow at 3 o'clock usual time. So I do usually go at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I'm live here on YouTube. Okay, and then bringing that down to there, and that is nearly it on that section there as well. Any hard edges, because it's starting to dry there again, damp clean brush. You just heard me wash that out hopefully, and lightly soften that down. Now I tend to use, by the way, for washing my brush out, get ready for this, it's a double water pot, but it's very dirty that side now, look. So when I wash my brush out, I'll wash it in the dirty, okay, and I'll wash it again in the clean. And that's how I tend to wash my brushes, out of interest. At least that way around, I've double washed it and I know it's very, very clean. Now for the kind of ready version, which is that raw umber, burnt sienna, and obviously alizarin crimson. So I'm going to add this one in now. Look at that. What a lovely colour that is. Ooh, ouch. That's nice, that is. Just a little bit though. I don't add too much in because it's quite a rich colour. It's that alizarin crimson that does it. It really is. Just the edge there. And looking at, you can see actually down the side of the body the colour you can see down there as well. It's exactly the same, isn't it? It's the same kind of mixture. As I mentioned earlier, this is just that foundation colour. That's what we're after. A little bit of colour in there. And look around the photograph for anywhere else that contains a little bit of this colour. I might just add just a fraction here and there. Just a bit of warmth. That's all I'm after. Now, you know that blacky blue we had earlier on, which is this one here. I'm going to make sure there's a little bit more black in that actually. I'm going to add more water in there. There you go. Something like that. And then we can use this, trust me on this though, just to add in to here. I know, but don't cover it up, Paul. I'm going to cover it up, okay? Trust me on it. I'll show you tomorrow. I'm going to add that into there, bringing it down into the neck. Looking where it's not an eye stripe, because you get the eye stripe coming down on a lot of birds, don't you? But it's that kind of angle coming down there. Allow it to blend into the rest of that paint as well. Okay, wash it out and then lightly soften any areas that are starting to go hard edges, because even though we're adding the detail over the top, I'm going to be covering a lot of this up, but a lot of this colour will still show through the detail we're going to add on tomorrow. Right. And other than a few little tickles here and there, we're nearly done with this first layer of wash. Okay, I've got a question come through, which is how do you not get a waterline? Well, what I tend to do, I make sure that I haven't got a reservoir of water, and all that simply is, I show what I mean on some scrap paper. It's probably going to be easier, isn't it? Excuse me. When I add water, I want this to dry anyway now. When I add water to some watercolour paper like that, okay, you can just see the way that kind of glistens on the light. Because my board is on this angle, water will go where, sorry, the colour will go where the water is. So it won't go to the dry paper. If I add paint into this in a minute, which I'll show you, you'll end up with like a reservoir of water. See that there, right on the tip, just about here. It's kind of flooding back, but there's a reservoir of water just on the very edge here. You can't quite make it out on the camera, I know. Just on there, basically. So it's big light beading of water is what we're looking at, just there. And if I did that around there, the colour will kind of pull up and kind of layer in one line, creating a bit of a waterline on the edge. And also to make sure you don't get a waterline, this is why I make sure that the paper is wet enough first before I start adding the colours over the top. That way you get all this kind of gentle blend of all the colours on the paper. Now if I start going on that now, I'll show you what I mean, look. You can see the shine has now gone off the paper. And that's when, if I put water on there now, it could just starburst everywhere, like it cause them blooms of colour, which as I mentioned is quite nice. But when you add a colour into something that's got a run of water at the bottom, or a beading of water as they say, let's add a little bit more colour in there, there you go. You can just see the way it's running down there before it drips on the painting. But that will dry like that as well. So you've got to be careful just to lightly mop that off if you get that on your painting. Dry or semi-dry clean brush, use your brush to lift off that water. Dry it, come back in, lift it off. Go on, Paul. See that now disappearing on us? Lift it off. Got a bit of a bristle there again. And there you go. And that's how I would kind of reduce that kind of edge, or a tide mark if you wish, around the edge of the paper. But just make sure it's all nice and wet, okay? That's all you got to do. Right, any more questions we've got on there? But basically that's how I tend to keep the paper wet. Let's see what else can we do. I'll tell you what I'll be doing as well tomorrow. When I'm working on the feathers, I'll be using what's called a replicator brush. And again, tomorrow, I'll tell you what, don't laugh, okay? I'll tell you what this is. Right, okay. I'll tell you all about that tomorrow. Right, so now you can see the body of the wash is now done. So the first layer, the foundation wash, is on the paper. And I think for today, we're just about there on that one. But at this point, what we can do, if we wanted to, is we'll just fine tune in little areas around the eyes, around the beak. If you wanted to do that whilst it's wet, you can still work on dry areas, but try not to touch any area that is still a little bit damp on the paper. So I'm going to just add a little bit of colour into there. Just make sure that everything's working okay, because I don't know really, I'm just yapping away here. A little bit more onto the beak as well. And there we go. Just to darken that down really. One of the things I like to do on a regular basis is just take my time and fine tune things as I go along. Now I'm just going to look at the shape around the nostril as well at the same time. And just lightly blend that in. Nearly had to run off my brush there again. Look. Now I've had another question come through, and that's, do you just use professional Winsor and Newton watercolours? No, it's not just professional ones. I use the Cotman range as well. I use both. I have used De La Rowney as well. I've used Snellia. I've used them as well. Tends to vary really, but most of my paints are admittedly Winsor and Newton. I just like the way they feel. I like the way they work. And as I said, the Cotman and the professional brands, I use both as well. And I'm not sponsored by them, so don't worry. I have to pay for them just like you do. So no different there. But yeah, lovely paints actually, they really are. I do like using Winsor & Newton. Okay, and then just a little more down underneath the lower mandible as well. And just going to look at one little thing there. Just down there. Okay, now remember to subscribe down below. Okay, so click on subscribe and that bell icon. Ding! Oh no, hang on, that was my wrist. And that bell icon as well, because then, as I said, when I go live tomorrow or any other time, or when I post a video, you won't miss it hopefully. Okay, so just do that if you don't mind, and if you don't mind also clicking on the like button as well, that'd be brilliant. Okay, so thank you very much indeed. Right, on that note, remember, if you're watching this on catch up, you'll find a link to the top right hand side as well on how to paint the second part of this. If you're watching this on catch up, after it's gone live tomorrow, I'll pop a link in that top right hand corner. So again, thank you very much for being here today, and thank you to Painters Online for allowing me to do this, and for the Patchings Fantastic Art event. So until next time around, I'm going to say goodbye, and catch me again 3 o'clock, okay, tomorrow, when we're working on all these lovely feathers. Okay, until then, bye for now.